Okay, so thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Brandon Grant. I'm the marketing director here at QuoteWerks, and today we're going to be demonstrating QuoteWerks Web. So it's been a long time coming. I'm sure a lot of you are anxious to see it. Before we get into that though, we're going to do just kind of like a short PowerPoint presentation, just kind of some of the features and some of the requirements, and just overall things that you need to know about QuoteWerks Web. We'll then do a live demo of the features, and then we'll do a Q&A session at the end where I'll answer a lot of the questions. Depending on how many questions there are, I'll get to as many as I possibly can. If I don't get to yours directly, don't worry. We'll follow up and we'll make sure we get your questions answered for you. You'll see in the GoToMeeting box, there is an option that says questions, little drop down. So if you click in there, that's where you can post your questions. I may answer some of the questions as they come in as we go through the demo. If you post a question and I don't answer it right away, don't worry, I'll circle back and make sure to get those answered for you before we sign off today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just kind of like a general overview for what QuoteWerks Web is. So QuoteWerks Web is an add-on to QuoteWerks Desktop. It requires a corporate edition and a valid UMP. Your UMP is going to be, you're going to have to keep that up to date just because that's going to keep the software up to date, and that's what's going to stay in sync with QuoteWerks Web. Because QuoteWerks Web is an add-on, you're actually going to be able to use your existing licensing features. So if you've added Quote Valet to your installation, you'll be able to use Quote Valet through QuoteWerks Web. If you've added real-time and Elis, you'll be able to use that through QuoteWerks Web. Cost-wise, it costs $10 per user per month, or if you buy the annual subscription, it will be $110 per year per user. That'll be prorated based on your maintenance. So if you wanted to do the annual subscription, we'll prorate it so your maintenance and your QuoteWerks Web licensing will all expire on the same day, so that you just have one renewal date with QuoteWerks instead of having multiple renewal dates throughout the year. The other option we have, there's actually three options for hosting the databases for QuoteWerks Desktop. So we're offering a hosting option, so you can choose to go with us. If you want to go through a third party, maybe you already have accounts set up with like Amazon or Azure or something like that, and you want to use those, that's perfectly fine as well. If you want to host it yourself on your own SQL server, you can do that as well. So you can do any of those three options. One is not necessarily better than the other. It's just what your preference is going to be. Our hosting option for QuoteWerks is going to be $40 per month. That's a site hosting option. That's basically, that'll host it for your entire company. So it's not $40 per person, it's just $40 per month for the entire company if you want us to host your database. So if we get into a product overview or feature overview, what QuoteWerks Web includes, right now it includes the full ConnectWise integration. You'll be able to create, edit, and deliver documents. So this means you'll be able to make quantity changes, change descriptions of your line items, use line attributes, all of that. That's all included in QuoteWerks Web. Like I said before, it is going to use your existing licensing features. So if you have Elis, if you have a Quote Valet subscription, you'll be able to utilize those features. If you want to add them on later, that's fine too. When you add them on, they'll be accessible via QuoteWerks Web. We also use your existing products and service databases. So if you are using the ConnectWise product list, we can search for items in ConnectWise and pull them into QuoteWerks Web. If you have set up your own product databases in QuoteWerks, you can also pull those, do a search, pull those in, and we'll demonstrate all those features today. We're also going to utilize your existing cover pages, layouts, literature, and spec sheets, so you won't have to recreate any of your existing documents. I know that's one of the biggest things is asking, okay, well, we have QuoteWerks Desktop. Are we going to have to recreate all of our layouts and all of that information in QuoteWerks Web? The answer is no. We're actually going to use your existing layouts. We're actually going to upload them into QuoteWerks Web so you have access to them. I see one question has already come in, and is a good one. It's basically asking if QuoteWerks will also be compatible with Autotask. Yes, we are writing the integration for Autotask right now. I don't have a time frame for when it'll be done, but we are currently in the middle of development, and then as we finish that one, then we'll start knocking out some of the other ones as well. So we'll just kind of go through those steps of adding more CRM and PSA integrations to QuoteWerks Web, kind of as the weeks and months go by. So, and to get back to this, continuing to utilize the existing covers, layouts, literature, and spec sheets, that's really important so that you're not having to recreate any of these documents or worry about your branding or anything like that, that everything will carry over from QuoteWerks Desktop into QuoteWerks Web. QuoteWerks Web is designed, since it's an add-on, it's an extension of QuoteWerks. It's just going to give you the access to utilize QuoteWerks essentially anywhere that you have an internet connection and ability to log in via your web browser. So right now, we have some resources on the website for you. The QuoteWerks Web dedicated web page is at quoteworks.com/quoteworksweb.asp. That'll bring you right to the QuoteWerks Web page. We have the demo video up there that's available, and also the help file instructions are super helpful. For those of you that want to set up QuoteWerks Web on your own, we have step-by-step instructions for those. Like I said, you basically have 3 options where we can host the database for you. You can host the QuoteWerks database yourself, through a third party like Amazon or Azure or something like that. Or you can whitelist the QuoteWerks Web IP address, so you have access to it via your SQL server. So any of those 3 options, it's up to you how you want to manage it, how you want to take care of it. But we have instructions for all 3 of those options in the help file for setting that up. But if you do have questions, definitely feel free to contact tech support before you get kind of involved in moving databases and trying to get things hosted. And as always, we're always available at various events. We're going to be going to Robin Robbins, ASCII events, the HTTP peer groups. We'll be going to Kaseya later this year as well. Those are just a few of the events we have coming up here in the next couple months. And again, social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, those are always great places to connect with us and kind of keep tabs of what's available, what's out there. As always, if you do have questions, definitely give us a call or send us an email. We're always happy to answer any questions you have. So feel free to give us a call. If you don't have time to jump on the phone, send us an email, send an email to sales, send an email to support. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into QuoteWerks. So this is going to be QuoteWerks Web. And what you're going to see here is the login screen for QuoteWerks Web. Basically, what you're going to put in is your tenant account number and your username and password to log into QuoteWerks Web. Now, this will be the same as your tenant account for Quote Valet. So if you already have Quote Valet, you already have a tenant account number. So you'd put that tenant account number in here. Your username and password would be your username and password for QuoteWerks. So we're keeping everything unified with your login, so you're not having to remember multiple logins in your installation. So I'm going to go ahead and log in with mine. And we'll log in. And then you'll see once we log in, we will get into our kind of home screen here. So there's a couple differences here that I want to point out. When you first log into QuoteWerks Web, you're going to see a kind of different interface, but once we actually load a quote, you'll actually have access to the normal features and functionality that you're working with. The idea behind the way we designed QuoteWerks Web was so that you're not having to completely relearn a new product. We didn't want you to have to spend, hours that you've already invested in learning the software and training your reps that they're going to have to learn a completely brand new system. So we wanted to try to keep as much as possible the same so that you're already familiar with it and you're not having to go out and learn a completely new system. So there'll be some minor changes and some adjustments there, but also some changes we feel will be very helpful. So the first step when you're creating a new document or wanting to use a new document in QuoteWerks Web is you have the option between starting with a new document or the open document. So if you click on the drop down, you can actually see a list of your existing documents that you've worked on, or we can start with a new quote, order, or invoice. You also have the option to load from a template. So if you're a very template heavy user, you can load directly from a template here. For our example, I'm just going to go ahead and start with a new quote. So we'll call this new quote. And then what you'll need to do is give the document a name. So this will be one of those differences where you typically start with a blank document without a document name, and when you save it, that's when the document name is assigned. Here, we're actually going to assign the document name right off the bat. So in this case, I'll just call this our webinar quote. And I'll click create. And you'll see as you create documents, as you make changes to things, you'll receive notifications in the bottom right where document was opened, document was created. Once the document is created, you'll see here, we actually have our quote number already assigned. So once you're in an existing document or a new document that you've created, you'll see some of this is going to look very familiar to you. You have your various tabs. So the document items tab, sold to, shipped to tab, so you can pull your contact information, sale info, notes, custom tab, links, and Quote Valet. Quote Valet is obviously not available yet because I haven't uploaded this document to Quote Valet, but once I have, that'll be available. On the left-hand side here, you'll see this is what we call the navigation panel. So this is actually going to be where you can kind of navigate around QuoteWerks Web a little differently than you would in QuoteWerks Desktop. So one of the first things you'll notice is you have the option to click on Documents, and this will bring you to the document search window. So if you want to search for an existing document in QuoteWerks, you can do that. If you click on Products, this is where your product databases will be set up and available in QuoteWerks Web. Contacts will let you search for a contact to pull directly into QuoteWerks. And Quote Valet Insight, if you have a Quote Valet account already set up with us, then you'll have your Quote Valet Insight option available here. And this will just prompt you to log into Quote Valet Insight, which we'll do here in just a few minutes. So if we go back to our workbook here, you'll see we have our tabs available. So we're just going to walk through the process that we typically would of creating a new document in QuoteWerks. So the first step would be to click on your sold to, shipped to, and click on the magnifying glass. And when we click on this, you'll see it'll actually bring us to the contact section of our navigation panel. So you can get there a couple different ways, but you're going to be able to do the same kind of functionality and walkthrough. So I can search for a company name in ConnectWise. So I'm going to type in Aspire, and it'll log into my account. And then I'll just go ahead and select my username here. So I have mine option. And then you can see, just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, you have the option to pull in the sold to, shipped to, bill to field. Or if you click all, that'll populate all three contacts into those fields. And again, you'll get that confirmation message down here at the bottom right. So to go back, we're going to click on Workbook. And that'll take us back to our sold to, shipped to tab. And you can see my contact information has pulled in. At this point, if I need to make any changes, change the document date, terms, PO number, change the expiration date, anything like that, assign this document to another sales rep, you'll have all that functionality available to you. Same thing with the Notes tab. If you have anything in your notes that you want to change or adjust or add, you can do that. So if we go back to our Document Items tab here, we then have the option to look up products. And just like contacts, you can go to the products lookup option here, or if you click on the products option over here, it'll bring you to the products window. So in our product databases, right now I have three different databases. I'm connected with the ConnectWise product list, my demo items database, and our products. So I can search in any one of those databases or all the databases for specific items. I also have access to Elis since I have an Elis subscription set up. So for instance, if I go into my demo items database here, see a list of my items. And if we'll go ahead and we'll just select a couple items to add. I can click Add Selected Products to my current document, and those items will now be added. So if we go back to our workbook, you can see those three items have been added to my document. So I go back into Products, and let's say if we go into ConnectWise, and let's look for an item that begins with Cisco, and then Find. This will actually search ConnectWise for any items that have a description that begin with the word Cisco. And we'll just select one or two here. We'll select these top two. And we'll choose Add Selected Products, current document. Go back to our workbook. You can see they've been added there. So, so far, pretty similar and very easy to utilize. Up at the top, if we go into Elis, this is where it'll be a little different. We're going to have some new functionality available in Elis that's not available in QuoteWerks Desktop. So the search will be very similar. So if I wanted to type in like trip light switch, and it'll do my search in Elis. Just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, I have the options for categories and manufacturers and features and attributes. So my filters that I'm used to having that I use in QuoteWerks Desktop, those will be available here in QuoteWerks Web as well. So if I wanted to drill down by product family and get to a specific series of items, I can do that. So wanted to narrow down my search results here just because it's a little easier to manage than for a generic item. So now that I have my search results kind of narrowed here, I can make some changes and I can start looking up items. So the first thing you'll notice is we have a couple new icons here. So our real-time button here, this is always going to be for real-time to get your pricing and availability from the vendors. So this will actually load pricing from all the vendors that you've set up in QuoteWerks. So D&H, Synex, Ingram Micro, Tech Data. By default, we'll show you the availability here, and then we'll also highlight kind of in that gold color which one has the best availability. So in this case, the vendor direct from Tech Data has 32. If I mouse over Ingram Micro, Synex, so it kind of pops it up for you so you can see which one. And then once you've moused over it, that little window will disappear. You'll then see the warehouse availability for each item, and then you can just mouse over it to easily see which one it's going to be. Just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, we'll highlight in green your best cost. And then to add the item to your document, you simply need to click on Select, and that'll add it to the document for you. You also have the option to add like your accessory items. So again, this one's going to be broken up in your different categories. And then I can just expand them and say, so if I wanted to get pricing for this Cat5 cable, I can get my pricing availability. In this case, Ingram Micro has it in stock, and yeah, looks like the best price out of all of them. So I'll go ahead and I'll select it from Ingram Micro and add it to my document. So, very simple. You also have the option to collapse this window here. So if you just click collapse, that'll bring the item back here. Couple new features on this window is going to be the ability to add an item to your workspace. So when I click on Workspace here, you'll see I have a Workspace tab available, and if I add a couple items to my Workspace, they'll show up here. The Workspace is a great place to store items that you quote on a regular basis. Maybe you're doing multiple quotes at one time, and you're going to be looking up a lot of the same items. So instead of having to restart your search from scratch each time, you want to be able to save these items to use for the next couple quotes. You can save them to your Workspace. This differs from the favorites because the favorites is essentially like a permanent save. So items on your favorites are always going to be available, where items for your workspace will only be available in this session. Every session in QuoteWerks Web is considered a session when you log in and then once you log out. So if you log out, then you basically ended your session. So anything added to the workspace during your session will be saved. Once you log out of QuoteWerks Web, those items will be removed from your Workspace tab. So it just gives you kind of like another place to store items while you're looking for items, and especially if you're doing multiple quotes, instead of having to search for the same items over and over again, you'll just be able to quickly look them up, get the pricing, availability, everything like that before you add them to the quote. So that's kind of what the Workspace is for primarily. We also have access to the compare window. So just like in QuoteWerks Desktop, if you add items to the compare tab, you'll see we'll actually build the comparison window just like we do in QuoteWerks Desktop, so you can see the differences between the various items. You can even get your pricing availability across all three items for all four distributors. You can add essentially as many items in there as you want. What we've really seen so far is probably like 8 to 10 is going to be the max, but it really depends on your monitor size. If you have a very large monitor, you can maximize the your browser window, then that'll work best for doing this. But in this case here, I've just got the 3, and then you can even remove them if you once you've kind of got your comparison narrowed down. And then the last option here is going to be the favorites button. So the favorites button is where you can save an item into your favorites tab. And this will also pull over or remember from your favorites folder in QuoteWerks Desktop. So if you already have the item saved in your favorites in QuoteWerks Desktop, those will carry over here into your Elis in QuoteWerks Web. But this is, again, extremely useful so that if you quote a lot of the same items on a regular basis, you're not having to find those items each time. You can just pull directly from the favorites folder instead. And you see you do have the option to add items to the workspace and compare. This option here, this just removes the item from your favorites. This isn't going to remove the item from your search results moving forward. It's just going to remove it from your favorites. And then if we go back into our search here, the last button you'll see is this one will actually remove this item from your search results for this particular search. So it's not going to be a permanent move. where it never shows this item again. But if you're wanting to maybe narrow it down to 3 or 4 items and you said, okay, I'm not going to quote this one, or this one, you could go through and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove that item, and then this item, and then this item, and you can remove those from the search results so it narrows down your results even further. All right. So we've added a couple items to our document. So let's go ahead and go back to our workspace, into our workbook here. So we have these items on our document. If you want to move items around the document, it's going to be very similar, just like in QuoteWerks Web, where you can, or QuoteWerks Desktop, where you can actually drag and drop items around, cut, copy, and paste, same kind of thing. So if you want to drag and drop items, you can just left click, choose where you want to put that item, and that item will appear there. If you want to do multiple items, just hold Control, just like you did in QuoteWerks Desktop, and you can move multiple items. If you wanted to move non-contiguous items, we can do that as well. So you really have a lot of options for kind of moving things around and getting those items in the right order or wherever you want them to appear in the document. We also have the option for your typical line attributes. So if you click on an item and right click, you'll see there's the option for edit line attributes. So I can click on edit line attributes, and I can assign if this item is optional, yes or no, tax code, hide price, hide quantity, print line, print picture is recurring, all that information. We can also are supporting the section headers, the new feature we added in version 5.3. So if I wanted to add a new section header here, so to insert section header, and we'll call this our products, and hit OK. There's our new section header. If we wanted to do maybe a new one for optional items, we can do that as well. And then I can say we're going to put it right there, and that'll show up under our optional items, or show up, give us that new section header for optional items. And then we can go into here and we can use our line attributes, just like in QuoteWerks Desktop. If I want to say, okay, these items are optional and they are selected and they're part of an exclusive group, I can do that. If they're not an exclusive group, I can leave them as is. If you have any items that are a service, you can add those as well. So for instance, if I wanted to say they're recurring and set them as a billing cycle, I could do that. Otherwise, you can just leave it as no, that's fine as well. So let's see, if we wanted to call this maybe we'll just say optional choices. And we can do that. And then the other options we have, if we wanted to hide price, so if you want to hide price on any of your items, you can do that. Hide the quantity, that's one of the more popular ones that carried over from QuoteWerks Desktop as well. So you'll have all that functionality available to you, as well as the print picture. Pictures are supported in QuoteWerks Desktop, so if you have items in your database that have pictures associated with them, or you're pulling them from Elis, you will be able to pull them into the quote here. Okay, so if we go back into QuoteWerks Desktop or QuoteWerks Web, one of the really cool things is that this is essentially a live quote in QuoteWerks Desktop. So as I'm saving this quote in QuoteWerks Web, this will become available for me to make changes in QuoteWerks Desktop. So let's go ahead and save it first. So we'll save our document here so we don't lose any of our work. Just like QuoteWerks Desktop, this is what's going to initiate the integration with ConnectWise. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. This will assign our document number, our status, and our project number. If you want to change any of those, you have the ellipsis buttons on the right-hand side to do so. We can then create and update the sales opportunity, create or update the link document, follow-up activity. If you want to create a one-off activity and the service tickets, you can do that. The one-off activity is the same thing as the follow-up activity, so I'm just going to create one, and then we'll go ahead and hit OK. So it'll save our document first, and then you'll get these messages kind of letting you know what's going on. So we're just first going to be able to create the new opportunity in ConnectWise, give the opportunity the quote name. So if you want to change it, you can. And then we can go through the normal process. If we want to say what type it is, put in a description. If you want to change any of these stages, source, campaign, location, sales rep. If you want to say, okay, this is going to be Brian's quote, but we have an internal sales rep with Mike working on it. And then what the forecast prefix will be, if you want to include the revenue in the total forecast, and if we want to create or update the individual product items and save them into ConnectWise, we can do that. So we'll hit submit, and then that'll save our opportunity. And then once it walks through that process, we'll actually go through writing the individual items into the opportunity, and then it'll prompt us to create the follow-up in ConnectWise. So here's the create new ConnectWise activity. So if I want to create like a follow-up, I can do that and choose who I want to assign it to. By default, it's going to be the sales rep in QuoteWerks, that you created the opportunity for in ConnectWise, but you do have the option to change it. I'm just going to cancel because I don't need to create that. And then if you wanted to create a service ticket at this point, you do have the option to create the service ticket. Will load from your default settings in the ConnectWise integration in QuoteWerks Desktop. And then you have the option to put in the summary, which would just be obviously the ticket name, description. And then if you want to create more than one, just do create new. If you just need to create the one, then you would just do create. I'm just going to cancel out of there. So if we go into ConnectWise and we go to our opportunities, we'll wait for those to load. And we'll go to today. So we can see here's the opportunity that we just created. And if I click on it, that'll carry over the information, my line item information, my products will be loaded in here, all the normal information that is available in your opportunity. So we'll just carry that over to ConnectWise for you. So like I said, since I saved this document and created it in QuoteWerks Web, it's also available in QuoteWerks Desktop. So I'm going to go into my machine real quick and log in here. And so if I go into QuoteWerks Desktop and click on Open, you can actually see the webinar quote. So it becomes immediately available in QuoteWerks Desktop. So if you have started working on a quote in QuoteWerks Desktop and you need to go home, maybe you're getting kicked out of the office, whatever the reason is, if you were working on it in the desktop version and then you close out of here and then go home and then log into QuoteWerks Web, you'd actually be able to open up that same document and finish making any changes or additions to it. So it's going to become immediately available. If you do have it open in QuoteWerks Desktop and QuoteWerks Web, whichever one you have it open in, it won't let you open it in the other. So if I tried to open it in QuoteWerks Desktop, let me open it as a read-only copy, but it won't let me actually make any changes to it since it is currently open in QuoteWerks Web. So just wanted to show that before we continue on here. Okay, a couple of other cool features about QuoteWerks Web is when you're making changes to your line item. So this item that I have highlighted currently, I have the option to toggle the description panel. So the description panel, when I click on this, will open up your description down here. So if I wanted to make a change to this description, maybe I'm copying and pasting from somewhere on the web, or if I just want to type in here, or I just want to shorten the description, I can easily do that by making the changes. And then you can actually click on the item directly below it. It'll save your change and show you the description for the next option. So if you wanted to go in here and just kind of make changes, you can do that. If you click tab, it'll basically just save your changes, and then you can click on the next one. So it's really easy to make changes to specifically the description. Instead of having to like double click in there, you can just click on it. If you do double click in the description field, that will open up your description window, so you can type in here instead. So you have a couple different options for making changes to the description, and you can toggle this field on and off here on your grid toolbar. We also have the toggle item panel, and when you click on that, that'll actually open up your panel to the right. This will show you all the fields you have available for this particular item. And typically, we do it by alphabetical, so it's by name alphabetical, but if you uncheck the order by name option here, you can see it'll toggle it in the same direction that you have these particular columns. So in this case, quantity, description, item type, hardware, and all that. So you can make changes here as well. So for instance, if I wanted to sell this for just $2,000, I can update it $2,000, and everything will change as well. If I need to change my tax code, vendor, anything like that, you can go through those steps and make those adjustments. And then you can simply close out of there to toggle that on and off, or just use the toggle item panel button to do that. So it's a nice little shortcut, especially if you're working on multiple items. You can go through, kind of make your changes. So if I wanted to change the quantity for this item, and then I can click on the next one and change the quantity for this one, you can go through and just kind of make adjustments to these particular items as you walk through that process. We do have the set dependent quantity feature available in QuoteWerks Web. So that'll be the ability to link items together. So for labor purposes and things like that, that functionality is available as well. And then you do have the option to get to the item attributes or the item properties from the grid toolbar as well. So that's what's in there currently and kind of the most up-to-date version of it. Okay, so made our changes to our items, ready to deliver them to the document or to the customer. So you see you have the option to click on the deliver window. So this will bring up our print, share, publish, deliver document window. And this will look somewhat familiar as you'll have the option to kind of move things around as needed. So first thing, if you want to include a cover page, you do have the option to select your cover page. We can then select our layout. So if we wanted to use our Galaxy cover or Galaxy layout here, if you wanted to include any additional layouts, we are supporting that functionality as well. Literature, I can attach my literature documentation. Same thing for spec sheets and links. If you have those available, they'll be available in QuoteWerks Web as well. And then once you have them on here, reordering these is just going to be as simple as just kind of dragging and dropping them in the order that you want. So if I want my cover page first, I can drag it first, and then we can print preview it here. One thing to note about when you are previewing your document, since this is going through a web browser, we're going to open up a new tab for you. So you may need to turn off your pop-up blocking for QuoteWerks Web specifically. That way the print preview pops up. If it doesn't pop up because you have the pop-ups blocked, just hit it again and then it'll open it up for you. So it'll just essentially turn into a double click instead of the single click like I had it. So this will be the preview of the PDF. So you can go through, make sure everything looks okay. I have everything in there, have all our items in here, everything pulled over from Elis. And then we have our totals in our document. We even have our support agreement in here as well. So we can send that out to the customer. So everything looks good. We can go back here, and then we have the option to upload this to Quote Valet. And again, we're going to be using the settings that you have in QuoteWerks Desktop. So if you want to view the PDF file again, you can do that. We'll have your Quote Valet layouts that you have in your system already available for you to use, and then we can upload them. And that's just looking for my picture and my signature for my particular user. And then we'll preview the picture here or preview the layout. And you'll see here we have our particular document, all our line item information, and then the customer can sign off on it. So like I said, it's going to use the normal Quote Valet documentation that you have. And then email. So the email will be a little different. This window is going to look a little different for you. By default, we'll use the same kind of formatting where we're using the email address that's on the Sold to Ship to tab. There is a separate email setup in QuoteWerks Web. You'll actually do that in QuoteWerks Desktop, and I'll show you where that is here in just a moment. But basically, under your tools, my preferences, you click on the email tab for your user. You can actually copy your email settings over so that you can set up your email. But I'll show you where that is. It's a very quick option. But then you have the option here to make any changes. There's our link to our quote. And then we can send it out. I don't have email set up, and that's not my right email anyway, so it won't go anywhere. And that's how you would deliver it to the customer. Like I said, once you've uploaded to Quote Valet, the Quote Valet information will be available. If you're delivering some documents via Quote Valet, whether it's QuoteWerks Web or QuoteWerks Desktop, doesn't matter. You'll actually see that information here as we upload it into your system. So you'll be able to have that. You'll see you have all the options of the normal Quote Valet buttons that are going to be available to you. Okay, so now that we've sent our document out to the customer's ready to move forward. We want to convert the quote to an order. So that is available under your file. You'll see convert to order. And we'll go ahead and we'll save it since we did make some changes. And then we'll click OK. So that'll update our quote as 1 in QuoteWerks, and then it'll bring up the opportunity to mark it as one in ConnectWise as well. You'll have the status here, sales stage, so if you want to adjust the sales stage, and then you have the option for the tickets if you want to create the tickets from your products and services, each services or products only. If you want to create the agreement or the sales order from the opportunity, you have that option as well, and then simply need to click submit to do that. And then that'll update our opportunity as one in ConnectWise. And at that point, you're pretty much done with this document in QuoteWerks as you've created it, delivered it out to the customer, accepted it, and made payment. One thing to note is I'm running this in its own tab in my web browser. If you wanted to use it inside ConnectWise, that's an option. If a lot of you watched the video, if we actually go into our sales option here, I have actually set up QuoteWerks Web where I can run it inside of ConnectWise. So if you don't want to have it as its own tab, you can actually run it directly in the ConnectWise interface. So since it's a web version, it's very easy to do. Personal preference, I like just having it in a separate tab, just so I can have ConnectWise on one monitor and you can have QuoteWerks Web on the other. But it's easier for you to kind of switch back between the two, since that's what you're used to and you're used to just kind of staying in ConnectWise. You can easily do that in QuoteWerks. We do have instructions in the help file for setting this up. So I have mine set up not only to open up QuoteWerks Web, but also QuoteValet Insight. So if you wanted to access QuoteValet Insight, which is the reporting engine for QuoteValet, you can also embed that into ConnectWise as well. So it's easy for you to get to in a nice little shortcut inside of there. Okay. So if we go back into QuoteWerks Web, there's a couple things to note about QuoteWerks Web. It's going to be very important because I see a lot of questions about it, QuoteWerks Web in general. First thing to note is that QuoteWerks Web is using all the information, settings, everything you have in QuoteWerks Desktop. So whatever you have saved and set up in QuoteWerks Desktop, that'll carry over here. Specifically the security settings, I know it's very important. So whatever security settings you set up for your users in QuoteWerks Desktop, that will carry over to QuoteWerks Web. Basically all your layouts, cover pages, spec sheets, literature, all that information is going to carry over. If we go back into QuoteWerks Desktop and we go to Tools, My Preferences, I'll show you on the Email tab here. This is where you'll see there's a QuoteWerks Web tab, and then there's a little copy button. So if you've already set up your email in QuoteWerks Desktop, just click on the QuoteWerks Web, click on the little copy button, and that'll copy over your settings from the QuoteWerks Desktop. So if you've already set up your email settings, you'll be able to copy those over here into QuoteWerks Web. So that's really, other than the initial setup with QuoteWerks Web, that's really all you have to do. With the QuoteWerks Web setup, if you already have a tenant account number with for QuoteValet, then you won't get any new credentials for QuoteWerks Web. We'll actually just turn it on our side, but you will have to validate the subscription and then go through the setup. We'll do probably a separate video. We'll actually walk you through how to set it up. It's pretty straightforward, but it's always nice to have the video instead of having to read the instructions. Okay, so that's pretty much all I wanted to cover through the web. I'm going to go through and answer some of the questions here since we do have a couple minutes before we need to move on. So I'm going to go through, answer as many questions as I can. If you do have other questions that I don't get to today, definitely feel free to give us a call or send us an email. Specifically, like I said, if you have questions about the setup instructions or setup in QuoteWerks Web, go to our website, QuoteWerks.com. We have our help file on our website. It has in chapter 33 the QuoteWerks Web Setup instructions, and we'll walk you through the 3 different options of whether you want QuoteWerks to host your databases, if you want to host your databases on your own, or if you want to just whitelist the QuoteWerks IP address, whitelist the QuoteWerks Web IP address for your SQL Server to access QuoteWerks Web through your SQL Server. That's fine. You can use either of those 3 options to utilize this. So if you posted a question, just hang tight for a minute while I kind of wrap this up, and then we'll go through your questions. Everyone else, thanks for coming in today. If you are interested in a trial, go ahead and contact the sales team. They'll be happy to set you up. They'll probably send you an email with some questions, just some things to some basics that they need covered just to get you set up properly. But yeah, if you have questions or you want to see it, definitely let us know. For those that post a question, just hang tight and I will answer those for you.